All right. Well, welcome to this week's edition of the Moor Insights Strategy Data Center Podcast. I'm standing in for Patrick Moorhead, our fearless leader, but I'm joined by co-hosts Matt and Paul. Guys, how's it going?
Doing
Oh,
great.
so listen, I've been using a MacBook Pro for 3 years now. I had my first unexpected system shutdown due to a failure, which is pretty darn impressive, right? 3 years, one failure. So while they might be shutting off my information via encrypted keys, they're stable. Anyway, just thought I'd throw
Good.
that out there.
Well, thank you for that public service announcement.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's episode number 20. How long have
Yes.
we been doing this, guys? Yeah, for quite some time.
20 episodes, yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, we've got an action-packed agenda today. We're going to talk about Nile. NVIDIA GTC was this week. So, Matt, you were there in person. I was watching from afar. I've got some insights there as well. Qualcomm. Paul's going to talk about Qualcomm. I'm going to talk about Microsoft. I spent time with the team in New York recently around their Copilot for security announcement. We've got Oracle and on-device, or actually Oracle autonomous database.
Yeah.
And of course, Paul likes to be cheeky with his headlines. He's going to talk about AI brain spy.
Oh.
So it's going to be quite interesting. But let's jump into Nile. And so
Sure.
Nile is a startup. It is backed by John Chambers. He's an industry legend in the networking business. And Nile came basically out of stealth mode, and they had their big announcement. I did write about this as well. And from a high level, what I really like about Nile is that it's a completely grounds up design. It's microservices oriented. It's highly containerized. No surprise. There's AI functionality. They offer both a Copilot and an autopilot feature. And what's really compelling from my perspective is they guarantee performance. And so that doesn't require an additional service level agreement. That's sort of baked into the overall solution. And they're also delivering security along with it as well. And that's no surprise. Networking security is converging, and they're focused on zero trust and have a very unique approach to that. So it's interesting. They are new. They have about, according to executives that I've spoken with, about 100 customers. They're growing that quite quickly. They've seen a 300% year-over-year growth, and they measure their success based on just millions of square feet that they're covering with their solution. And what's also nice, they can take completely all of the guesswork out of the deployment and the ongoing management. They manage all of that, and so they make it a really simple solution to deploy and consume. It is new. It is different. A lot of other solutions from the more established vendors like Cisco and HPE. There's some refactored architecture that kind of goes along with that. But I really like kind of the modern approach. And I'm wondering, Matt, do you have any thoughts around that? Have you been following them at all?
I haven't, but I'm kind of curious. It seems like everybody is moving toward this like as a service kind of approach to the market with new services.
Yeah.
How big of a lift is it for, you think about giants like a HPE Aruba or a Cisco, right?
Yeah.
How easy is it for them to, because the advantage of a Nile is you come out fresh, you have an architecture that is designed for as a service from the ground up, right? I think you mentioned it. There is no kind of going back and retrofitting or having to refactor your services. How easy is it for a Nile to you mentioned differentiate from a Cisco, from an HPE, or can Cisco and HPE quickly respond to a Nile, through what they have in their portfolio?
Sure. I think from the service level agreement perspective, they certainly could. So, Cisco and Aruba, as an example, if they want to sort of meet comp, with respect to that, they could certainly do that. The economics of that might be difficult for them to do that. I mean, certainly when you look at Cisco and what they're doing, leveraging Meraki and the cloud native aspect of the Meraki platform. And they're bringing a lot of that cloud management capability into like the Catalyst portfolio as well.
Yeah.
They can certainly get there. But there's some hangover, there's some legacy, concerns that have to be dealt with there. And I'm not putting, Cisco or Aruba down because they have great offerings, but it's, I sort of like, what Nile is doing because they're entering a market that's crowded, right? And there are a lot of existing solutions that are out there. I think the biggest lift for Nile will be to convince enterprises that have the track record that some of the more established incumbents have. But that's a great point, Matt.
I think there's an interesting play here too. For if you think about, there are a lot of these. We mentioned as a service. There are a lot of these kind of startups that call them cloud native, right? Born in the cloud. That a new breed of company potential customer is really attracted to, right? There's not a lot of legacy. There is just let me get my offering at the best price. It's going to be not good enough, but it's going to be good. Even if they don't have the track record, I don't have the track record either. I can see them kind of breaking in, in that not startup, but the more modern business, and then kind of working their way up market from there. Could be a lot of fun to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. Hey, Matt, let's go to your first topic, and you want to talk about NVIDIA. You were there on the ground with Patrick.
I was, and man, it was trouble.
And there was a lot of news there, a lot of networking news, and
yeah, there was a lot of trouble. So I'm going to start out by saying that Jensen's keynote, I mentioned this pre-show, was kind of like going to a Taylor Swift concert. There were a lot of phones held up with the screens lit, and I swear I saw T-shirts and all kinds of weird things going on. But GTC 24 was like I have to say the energy was kind of unlike maybe any conference I've been to in recent memory. And it wasn't just about NVIDIA. It was this thing called AI that everybody is so heavily focused on. My three takeaways for NVIDIA were that it's not just a GPU company, although everyone is going to write about Blackwell and everyone's going to write about I think it's the NV72 something or other, the new rack scale solution they have. Well, everybody's going to focus on that technology. What I took away is that NVIDIA is making not a pivot, but they are leaning heavily into software and services. I like that thumbs up. Leaning heavily into software and services. They understand that inference is the long tail and the big meat of the market, and they understand the importance of their ecosystem. So a couple of things, couple of reasons I say that, and proof to that is if in the pre-briefings we had, and then listening to Jensen and then listening to folks at NVIDIA, while they talked about Blackwell, they also talked about NIMS. They also talked about frameworks. They also talked about the enterprise suite or enterprise tools that they have, and they talked about how this kind of gets activated in the enterprise. And that to me, it's a different approach than CUDA. It's establishing stickiness with customers like they did with CUDA, but it's also understanding that that software is a very important function within AI. Right? It's not just about how you program a GPU or write to a GPU. It's about how you make AI work in your environment. Right? Far different story than just like how do I sell more hardware. They're truly becoming a software company. From an ecosystem perspective, what I found very interesting is I think it was Wednesday, Jensen walked the show floor, stopped at Dell, stopped at Lenovo, stopped at Vast Data, stopped at a bunch of cloud players. He was going from booth to booth and visiting and talking about how important every single one of those ecosystem and exhibitors was to the AI journey and the NVIDIA story.
Yeah,
I don't think I've seen and he's a huge personality. You would have thought, the King of England was walking around, or Taylor Swift was walking around the show floor the way people responded to him. But I've never seen that. I've not seen that kind of interaction and that kind of promotion of partners. Tells you how important he views them, NVIDIA views them, and how important they are to NVIDIA as well, by the way, right? And then from a support and services, just one of the things I found very interesting when we were on the pre-briefings, Paul, I think you were on them prior to the show. You know, while Blackwell was kind of the darling of GTC, they led those briefings with all of the vertically focused solutions that they're standing up around healthcare, manufacturing, data intelligence. And why I think that's important, there's something symbolic in there that while they have all of these analysts on and they want to talk about what they're doing, the very first thing they talked about was how they make this thing work within specific environments, right? Kind of frictionless, I want to say zero touch, but frictionless enablement of NVIDIA inspired AI within these different verticals. That's a big deal, I think. And it tells me that they understand they really have to kind of pivot from we have really cool silicon to we are more than just silicon. So really interesting tool, show.
Yeah, from my perspective, you touched on the partnership aspect. I think during his keynote, he called out Michael Dell, I think twice, and even plugged Dell. It's like, hey, they sell great compute infrastructure and storage infrastructure. You ought to go see Michael about that. And to your point about a platform, I mean, they're truly delivering a platform now, right? So it's silicon, it's software. I'm going to be writing an article around telco, but there was an announcement around what the company hopes to do with its cloud platform in optimizing RAN infrastructure around future 6G technology, which I found really fascinating as well. But hey, Paul, what were some of your insights from GTC? There was a lot to kind of dissect.
Yeah, I wasn't at GTC.
Oh, you aren't? Okay. Well, sorry. I should have probably asked you that before we got started. So.
But Paul, what do you think about NVIDIA in general and kind of the, onslaught of inference and how all these things work? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just amazed at what they keep coming out with. I mean, I thought maybe this year there'd be some type of incremental thing to Hopper, but then they come out with this 200 billion transistor monster that's twice the size of that, and managed to make it all work. And it's just an amazing company, I think. 5 times the training speed, 30 times the inference speed, at 25% of the. What do you say? From a power performance, it was like 25% savings on power performance. Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Fun market to watch. One last thing if I can throw, because I don't want to go, I know I tend to talk too long, but keep an eye out on that inference side. While NVIDIA has a great story and they're going to do very well, right? Keep an eye out for other players. Qualcomm, every conversation I had with cloud providers, with customers, with partners, Qualcomm came up for their A100 part. Grok is always part of the conversation. Untether AI. There are a slew of inference parts out there that are going to play into this market, and it's going to be a huge market. It's wide open. It's going to be, so keep an eye. It's going to be a fun watch.
Yeah, for
Cerebras,
sure.
You can look at the Cerebras, AMD.
Cerebras, yep.
Intel's coming along.
Yep. Yeah, lots of good stuff.
Yeah, really good stuff. And I apologize, guys. My connectivity is pretty shaky. I don't know why. I've got fiber service here at the house, but we'll try to get through this. Of course,
That's all right. My hands are shaky, so we're
good.
I
take over the hosting privileges, and I get the death by demo here. But hey, Paul, let's move to Qualcomm, and you want to talk about on-device AI.
Qualcomm came out with some really interesting AI announcements at the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. Qualcomm, like Intel and others, their goal is to be able to run AI at scale just about everywhere, including the edge. And Qualcomm's announcements puts AI right on the edge for devices like PCs and cars and phones and IoT and Wi-Fi and everything else. So one of the really interesting announcements they made is the Qualcomm AI Hub framework for developers. It makes development of Qualcomm products a lot easier. It's got over 90 AI models in it.
Oh, wow.
You can build whatever you need: image generation, text, object detection, high resolution, image classification, all kinds of things you can do with it. But it's strictly for the developers. And what was interesting is it seems pretty easy to use. I mean, you pick a model that you want to use, pick a Qualcomm target platform, do all your testing and validation, and write a few lines of code, and away you go. You're all set. It handles any framework and any runtime, TensorFlow, PyTorch, ONNX, whatever. Mm-hmm. And the first month they said that they've had over 1,000 developers signed up and over 8,000 models run. So, that's pretty large acceptance. So, I think the hub is really going to be I think I could actually go in and build a model on the hub. So.
Hey, Paul, quick question for you. When you say on device, is that handhelds only, or is that the PCAI stuff too?
Yeah, one of the announcements was they have the world's first. It's not a large language model, but a large multimodal model.
Yep.
It will run on an Android phone. It's a 7 billion parameter model, mm-hmm. and it can run basically in a conversational mode. You can load in an image, and like maybe a horse or a saddle, and say, tell me, what are the components of that saddle, mm-hmm. and it'll come back and give you a list of what's in there in a conversational mode. So text, images, voice. So it's also got contextual memory for complex interactions. I mean, you can't have 2 sentences and then forget about what you're talking about. It wouldn't be very effective that way. And they are also running that on that LML on a Windows PC. So that can do some really interesting stuff. So.
They're a fun company to watch.
Yeah,
they really are. I mean, they're innovating in so many different areas. When I think of on-device AI, I mean, I remember, and Matt, you and I, for a few years, we were getting to China, spending time with that company, Huawei, at their analyst summit, and they were talking about their Kirin chipset. Yep. That was AI infused or embedded, and it could do things like sense when a user was, for example, more, email centric or browser centric, and sort of adjust the performance. I mean, I guess the difference here is that you've got these large language models and you've got generative AI, right?
Yeah.
The good thing is that, I mean, Android users will be able to interact with, virtual assistants, or financial services, healthcare, whatever. So I think it's going to give AI a completely new dimension in terms of gaming. I mean, can you imagine having a gaming agent on your Android phone? I mean, it's going to make games a lot more interesting, a bigger challenge. And I think this is going to what Qualcomm has introduced. I think it's going to influence what happens with commercialization of AI at scale at the edge. So I think it's good.
Yeah, cool stuff. Well, let's continue the AI conversation, and I'm going to talk about Microsoft. So I spent time with Microsoft in New York. We took 6.5 on the road, and I was the guinea pig. So for viewers that aren't aware of this, we're expanding the 6.5 media universe. It's no longer the Patrick Moorhead and Daniel Newman show. We're going to be getting more of us involved, and I was the first. I was with Krista McComber, and we did three videos with executives there, and it was around their Copilot for security launch. So leveraging generative AI to bring efficacy and better functionality within security. And it's, from my perspective, it was quite impressive. what Copilot hopes to accomplish is provide incident summarization, impact analysis, elimination of reverse engineering of scripts, and guided response through prompt books to help customers really reduce the friction and help customers adopt generative AI that much more quickly. It's a consumptive pricing model, so I like that aspect of it, sort of pay as you go. Yeah. And they're being flexible with respect to how they're delivering it. So there's a standalone version as well as an embedded version that works within like the Office 365 suite and the collaboration, solutions and that sort of thing. And what I also like about it is that Microsoft is not focused on a walled garden deployment, which a lot of security companies tend to do. I mean, certainly it's going to be compatible with Intra and Defender, but Microsoft is also working with companies like Netscope, Valent Security, Tanium, and others to broaden the ecosystem and really provide access and democratize it and lower the bar with that consumptive pricing model to make it super attractive. So I don't know, Matt, maybe starting with you. I don't know if you caught the news. I did publish a research note on this, so our viewers can download that on the Moor Insights Strategy website. But what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, it's when you say generative AI for security, this goes to, I think about kind of, at some point, this is the beginning to, what's the term I used the other day? Because my terms are so cool and clever, of course.
They are.
But kind of like a set and forget kind of mentality that folks can have, right? And so starting out, I mean, great. Microsoft, I felt like Microsoft had come a long way on the security side over the last 10 to 15 years anyway. When you think about all of the good work they've done, you think about kind of the generative nature of this and kind of I love the infusion in Copilot, meaning that, kind of learns as it goes and kind of gets better and better. The other thing I love about it is the openness, and this is something that has really changed in Microsoft in the last few years. It used to be Microsoft solutions for Microsoft by Microsoft, and that's it. And if other companies want to bolt on, fantastic. But Microsoft will not open its kind of secret garden for others to enter. I love the kind of openness approach that they're taking with this. But I do think this gets to some end state where it is a set and forget kind of function, right? Copilot eventually becomes pilot. You don't have to really worry about it. And you set, kind of set it, go along your way, and it self-learns, self-heals. It's kind of like the autonomous, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but the autonomous security solution over time. And that, I'm not, so I didn't catch the podcast. I apologize. I wasn't sure if this was simply a client function, or if this starts to apply to kind of server and data center as well. But if it's not, I see this quickly moving into enterprise level security beyond just clients and what you're doing on your devices.
Yeah, no, it's very client focused, but to your point, I think you'll see that broaden. The company was in preview for over a year. The other thing I like about what Microsoft's done is they took that year to really sort of understand the feedback and really build that into the GA version that just launched this month. Or it's actually going to launch April 1st, but they got ahead of it a few weeks with the announcement last week. So.
Yeah. I was going to say, one thing I think they did was smart was they created a custom prompt book in different languages. Right. And I think that's a really important part. I mean, most people probably think they know how to write a prompt, but in reality, to write a good one, you have to understand exactly what you need and what all the links are that you can pull into it. And I think that's really a good thing that they did.
Yeah.
My only feedback, Will, would have been do the launch on April 2nd. Don't launch a security product on April Fool's Day. But,
well, early April, so I'm not sure if it's April 1 or April 2. But yeah, good point. But hey, Matt, let's go to your next topic, and if I can pull it up here, and if my internet behaves. But You want to talk about Oracle's autonomous database.
Global shard.
Shards. Like, what's a global shard, man?
That is a real word, by the way. And going on the theme of autonomous and, kind of writing easy prompts and semantics. So it seems like I think I've mentioned this before. It's almost impossible to track everything that Oracle is doing across its entire portfolio. They're moving so fast on cloud and moving everything into a cloud-like function, which is kind of what Microsoft is doing as well. You talk about a year-long beta, right? That's very common now for these cloud-like solutions where you just let people play, see how it goes, get feedback, kind of iterate quickly. And Oracle's been doing that quite a bit as well. So with distributed database, the function of distributed database has been around for some time. Now, it's not anything necessarily new or novel. What Oracle does is novel, but it's not novel. Distributed is not novel in that a lot of databases you can shard them or cut off kind of sub databases, if you will, and store them locally around the world, right?
Yeah.
Causes a whole bunch of issues around performance, manageability, complexity, cross SQL between regions. It just gets super ugly to try and manage, and performance gets really bad. What Oracle did was they took everything they've built in over the last 40 years or so around clustering and performance in clustering, and they applied it to their distributed database. So as you take these shards and you kind of put them in India, China, Japan, wherever, right? You don't get all that complexity and that loss of performance. That's really cool stuff. That's been around for a bit. What they did is they took all that capability and threw it into their autonomous database, which truly is a set and forget kind of mentality. Deploy it, set your parameters, set your requirements around local data sovereignty, local data survivability, privacy, so on and so forth. Set your policies, set your requirements, set your performance requirements, and forget about it. It self-heals, it self-patches, it self-monitors, manages, reacts. It does all of that on behalf of you or for you. So if I'm an IT organization with a multinational presence, number of DBAs I need and database specialists I need goes way, way down, right? Or I shouldn't say goes down, but they can do more value-added functions other than kind of maintaining a database shard in India or down in South America.
Yeah.
That's part one. Part two, they have this function they built in. It's called Select AI. And for people who have written in Oracle or used Oracle, they know what a select statement is. It's kind of a play on words. But it essentially takes all of the complexity of SQL Plus and PL SQL, those languages you use to get data and manage data within Oracle, and it normalizes it. So instead of someone saying, I need to do a select da-da-da from da-da-da-da and needs to understand the semantics and the language of SQL Plus, they can talk in English. Tell me all of the customers that reside in Massachusetts and have the first name Will, right? Yeah. And you can get that out instead of creating a very complex SQL statement to do that. They've built that capability in as well. So again, my business users across an enterprise have quicker access into my data and can use it more readily and more effectively than having to send them off to some programming school to understand how to write those prompts. Really cool functionality. They were literally years ahead of others. The NoSQL community that a lot of folks have embraced to try and accomplish some of this doesn't scale. A lot of the competition doesn't scale and doesn't have this functionality built in. So they've got a really good head start over the competition. It's just a really cool functionality, set of functionality for existing Oracle companies, and it shows how they're not just relying on their existing customer base, but really focused on this new type of customer that needs to be everywhere, anywhere, at all times, and do so in a really quick and agile fashion. And
the natural language query, I mean, that's a game changer. It just reduces the friction. And you talk about automation, and certainly it's applicable in networking, the area that I cover. When you can automate things, you can free IT professionals up to do more value-added support for the lines of businesses that they're supporting, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, 15 years ago, it used to be, when I was in IT, you had a database team, you had a networking team, you had a server team, you had an apps team, you had a web team. You had all these teams that were dedicated, certified, and that's all they did. And this goes back to your the NaaS discussion and other areas of functionality too. Those silos are breaking down, right? IT needs to operate as a cloud, right? And this is how you get to that kind of cloud operating model. So.
Yeah, for sure. And automation is key when it comes to delivering NaaS as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
Paul, anything to weigh in on here before we hit your?
I know. I just think with all the concern about data privacy and sovereignty, and this shard by shard approach is a good thing. I've got a kind of a slogan you could take back to them, is that data that shards in Vegas stays in Vegas.
What shards in Vegas stays in
Vegas.
I
I learned something new today about global shards, so thank you, Matt, for that lesson. But you know what? It wouldn't be a Moor Insights and Strategy Data Center podcast if Paul didn't weigh in with a tantalizing headline. And so let's talk about AI Brain Spy. Paul, take it away.
I've been following some work being done with magnetic resonance imaging and AI, and there's a paper that came out on a program called MIND-I2 that was obviously a MIND-I1, and looking at the comparison between the number 1 and number 2. It's quite a bit of difference under MIND-I. Well, basically, what it is it takes reconstructs visual perceptions from brain activity, looking at MRI. So, you look at something, and your brain causes an image to form, and then you can read that with an MRI, basically. But between MIND-I1 and MIND-I2, the MIND-I1 was you do a little bit of training like on a giraffe, and you look at the subsequent images based on how much training is involved, and you go from the original would be a giraffe, and the next one might be a Jeep, and the next one might be a crane, and the next one might be a dog or something. But with MIND-I2, you get a giraffe, and then basically everything in between is the program can actually read an image of a giraffe from your perceptions all the way through with only an hour of training. So they've made a lot of progress. And my point for bringing this up now is the fact that we're getting into a lot of mental things and a lot of interpretation with AI and MRI. I mean, to me, that's really fantastic. I mean, be able to kind of basically read somebody's mind with using MRI and AI. And then you couple that.
But
go ahead.
I was just going to say, what are the practical implications for that?
What are the what?
Practical implications for that?
Well, it'd be a lot of things in healthcare and stuff. You could, when you get to a certain point where it's really accurate, I mean, you could, if people have got certain distortions in certain areas of the image, or they're perceived in a different way, it could be a psychological thing, or it could be a physiological thing within the brain. So I would think maybe mainly healthcare, but as you go further down the road, you can get into a lot of dark things that you really wouldn't want it to be used for, but it could be used for.
Hey, Paul, what do you see as like a timeline, a horizon for this, technology like this to be kind of in broad adoption and broad use?
Yeah, the clip we're going, I would say maybe 3, 4, 5 years.
Wow.
We should see some really practical stuff.
That's incredible.
And also on the tail of this, I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but Elon's Neuralink is doing some really neat things now. They have one patient that had a Neuralink embedded. He's now able to play chess. He's paralyzed from the neck down, and he's now able to play chess with his mind.
Yeah.
By saying, thinking, move the cursor up one, over right one, and he played a game. I'm not familiar with it. It's called I'm trying to remember the name of it. Civilization, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he was so enthralled with what he was able to do. He played this game for like 8 hours online up until 6 in the morning. But you combine that with the ability to do kind of mind reading and interpretation of the images and stuff like that. I mean, there's some really powerful stuff coming down the line.
Yeah,
it's going to be a different world in a few years.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Musk is working on the next project is Blind Sight, being able to restore the vision of people who were born blind.
Yeah. My gosh.
Wow. I mean, talk about just
that chills up my spine.
Yeah.
Incredible. Well, guys, thanks for putting up with my spotty internet. Like, I've got fiber service. I'm going to call AT&T when I end the podcast here. And I was remiss in not stating the disclaimer up front, so I don't want to get in trouble with our fearless leader, Pat. So I'm going to lay it out there. I want to emphasize this show is for information and entertainment purposes only. We have talked about a lot of publicly traded companies. The contents of the show should be taken as not investment advice, but purely entertainment.
There you go.
So with that, guys, thanks for being patient with the internet connectivity. I thought it was a great podcast, number 20.
Yeah.
Where's Patrick Moorhead? He's just been all over the place. He was at GTC, Matt, with you, right?
Yep.
Right? I think he was with Qualcomm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where are you headed, Matt, in the coming weeks?
Oh man, I've got a lot going on. I'm going to be at Intel Vision in early April in Phoenix. So if you're anybody out there watching is out there, look me up. Google Cloud Next, Data Center World the week after that in DC, and then the Oracle Analyst Summit, followed by the Red Hat Analyst Summit the weeks after that. So it's going to be a busy few weeks for me. How about you?
I'm headed to NTT. Yeah, but Paul, you go for it.
I'm also going to Intel Vision, going to Google, going to a couple of small events, heading out to New York for IBM in November, and I think that's it.
Right on. I'll see you all. How about you, Will? Going to NTT? Going to Japan?
Yeah, I'll miss Vision, so you guys have fun. I'll be with him. No, it's Upgrade. It's in San Francisco, so I'm staying stateside, and then I'm going to take a little bit of time off towards the end of the month in the Florida Keys and get my fishing on and enjoy myself, because come May, June, it's going to be fast and furious. Matt, you and I will be together for a lot, like Discover and Cisco Live and whatnot. So
Fun never ends.
Never ends. So, all right, guys. Well, again, thanks for the time. Thanks for the patience. Want to thank our viewers for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, hit the subscribe button, and we wish you a great weekend.
See you guys.
See you guys.
Bye.